Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I have the opportunity to work on a reel that Scott found at a West Coast flea market. This is the Eagle Claw Wright and McGill, model number 225. It was made in Japan. It's a spinning reel, circa the 1970s. Seems to work smooth enough, but it seems like, well, there's no anti-reverse. So this might be one where it's just a matter that the spring has come unloose or something. Or it may be that the spring is broken and, well, we may not be able to repair this reel because parts are no longer available for it. And, well, sometimes that happens with the older purchases. So if you're going to be buying reels at flea markets, make sure you test all the features and functions ahead of time just to give you an idea of whether you're in for some surprises or not. This one, interestingly enough, has a bail that can collapse. You'll see that little point there. If you pull that line out, it'll drop the bail down, and when you drop the bail down, it takes it out of harm's way when storing it. So if you find one like that, don't think it's broken. It simply reloads here. So quick test of the reel. Anti-reverse is not working. We're going to show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, hopefully how to service that anti-reverse, get it back to going again. And, well, we'll all learn something from this one. I'm not quite sure of the manufacturer of this one, but it was Japanese made in the 1970s. All right, well, let's get started by taking off the exterior pieces. And as we do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you like the art of reel repair, if you like learning about fishing reels, if you have reels that you're looking to service and want to see how it's done, well, this is the channel for you. If you do subscribe, please use the notification button. That notification button will let you know when I'm posting, and, well, you can make a decision as to whether you want to view the video that I'm posting that day. All right, I've just removed the handle. I'm going to remove the 3 screws. I'm not sure if I can get away with, yeah, it looks like I can get away with the Phillips head. This one's got a straight through slot, but it also looks like it has the work for that Phillips head. And I prefer the Phillips head. I can twirl it, keep the thing centered. Makes it a little bit easier all around. Well, we'll get a look in just a second here about what's going on inside the reel, and we'll be able to take a look and see what that anti-reverse is and whether it's a lost cause or not. So many of these older reels are thrown away because, well, you just can't get parts for them anymore. All right. We're going to remove the side plate, and here's our first look inside. On the inside look here, the spring is still attached. The dog is held on by an E-clip. So it looks like the dog is simply grease choked and frozen in space. So I think we're going to get lucky with this one. I think Scott's going to get lucky with this one, and that's great. Let's take a moment, see if we can push that main gear out. Just as I was thinking Scott was going to get lucky. It seems there we go. There's a lot of old grease on there. Okay, and that seems to be what the issue is here with the dog. Well, you have 2 options with this dog to make it work. We're going to go with the lazy man's option number 1, which is use penetrating oil. See if we can't break up the old grease. I'm going to put that grease solvent right there. Let that sit for a moment. Come over to this side and do the same. While I let that kind of soak for a moment, there's a cross-wind block here. It's held on by a little Phillips head screw, and we're going to remove that so that we can remove the top end of this. For the moment, I'm going to leave the spool attached. We'll service the spool later. When I remove the pieces and parts, they go into a parts tray. I use a fast food container for that. I'm going to hold the crosswind block and pull up to see if we can't get the spool out. We can. Now I'll take that off. I like to use the spool as a lever or a knob to get to remove the axle shaft a little bit easier. There's a lot of old dried grease on this. I think that's probably what the issue with this reel is. So I'm just going to use the steel wool to clean it off. That shaft seems right. So we can put that into the tray. Let's come back and grab that crosswind block. Now hopefully you took a picture here, or you've at least made a mental note. This crosswind block has the axle screw on the bottom, and it's not symmetrical, right? So if you go to reinstall and you put it this way, it's not going to work. So you got to put it on the downside. All right, we've cleaned that. Let's go back here, see what we can do with the dried grease. And I like to use paper towels when I'm cleaning parts, rather than getting the pieces all over my bench. I find that I can just scrape off the old greases, like I'm doing here with a flat-bladed screwdriver, and just kind of wipe it onto the paper towel. That way I don't transfer it to my next project. Well, we saw that it was hard getting it out. This dried grease acts as a glue, and while that's problematic for a lot of the old fishing reels, it just kind of gets stored. They're stored with fresh grease, and over time that grease just coagulates. Eventually it dries, and then, well, it doesn't work any longer. All right, so we've cleaned that up nicely. I'm just going to take a brush now, clean off the rest that I couldn't get with that scraper. This is just I call them dollar store brushes or Home Depot brushes, but you can use a toothbrush if you don't have any of those. Checking the teeth, they're all nice and clean and crisp. I'm feeling them. Check them from both sides. Check the points this way, and check the inner teeth, the little grooves. Make sure those are good. All right, that's cleaned. Let's go back over to this side, see what we can do here now. We'll use that same screwdriver to get the old grease off of this side. No question, that's what was holding the main gear in place, not allowing it to come out freely. Do the same thing. Once you've scraped it off, go use that. All right, let's see what we can do now with the anti-reverse stalk. Seems to be stiff, but it is opening up. And we're just going to do the same thing here. We're just going to keep moving it back and forth until we get that functioning. There you go, it's firing already. That's simple. So just do a little bit more of the cleanup, get some of that old grease off of there. But what you've essentially done is you've dissolved the old grease that was sticking, and well, restored that function. Okay, we're going to oil that anti-reverse. And what we want to do is we want to set this to the off position so that when we go to reinstall the main gear, we don't trap it by not meshing it in with one of these teeth on that axle there. All right, we're going to put a little, whoops, looks like there's some residual there on that shaft. I'm going to use this piece of steel wool. It looks like there's some dried grease on the shaft as well. That tells me make sure that you go inside here. Just going to make sure that you clean that out as well. So Eagle Claw Wright McGill. Eagle Claw is founded out in Colorado, and it was basically set up as fishing hooks, owned by Wright and McGill. Those were the founders. And well, they needed an extension of their product line. Made sense to extend their product line into fishing reels, and that's why you have the Eagle Claw fishing reels. And I think in some varieties you still have them today. Most of the time they were trade reels, and a lot of these were well considered value-priced reels. Look at how much easier that turns now. Well, we put the greases onto the back. Let's just go ahead and put greases onto the teeth. And you want to get it on the face of this as well. That's because that crosswind block is going to run on that face, and you want to get that maximum slip. I don't normally do something like this, but I'm going to do it here. I'm going to put the handle on at this point so that I can hold the gear in place. And I'll put that back into my parts tray. Well, we got to come up top now. It looks like we have a it's going to be a 7/16, but it was made in Japan, so it's probably a 10mm. Let's go get the ratchet. You can't use a flat-bladed screwdriver here because the well is too deep in the rotor. So you're going to need a ratchet to do that. And we're going to start by thinking this is coming off in the traditional counterclockwise or lefty-loosey manner. I've got that nut loose, so let's just take that off. Work it off by hand. And again, put that into the parts tray for safekeeping. Notice we have a little bit of a keyway here. We should be able to lift up. Check underneath, make sure that it's all clean. A lot of times these bowls will have sand and dirt and grease and grime and the like in there. No problem with that. I'm going to use the penetrating oil again as a cleaner. I don't generally use it as a lubricant, but I do use it as a cleaner. And it's just what appears to be some dried grease in there. Once you do that, you can put a little bit of oil onto the lever and wipe it down with your paper towel. On greasy paper towel. Time to change that out. While you're doing that, you can use your penetrating oil on the seam of that bail arm. There's nothing going on this side, it's a dead end, but it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of oil in there as well. And as long as your bail is working, you do not need to remove the bail wire. I get a lot of folks that have told me that they've taken the bail wire off and it's caused problems. Well, it's easy to avoid the problems. Now, of course, if you dump this in the sand, if the bail is not firing properly, by all means, take that off and get it set up. But you don't need to as part of a normal service if that's not the case. Let's go to the remaining piece, which is a pinion gear. I think we can push that down. There's a bearing in there. And sometimes you get lucky and these bearings come out. Sometimes they don't. But you're able to remove the pinion gear from the bottom to do the cleaning there. And if this bearing doesn't come out, one of the things you can do is just oil it up if it's performing fine. A lot of times the only way to get that pinion gear out is through the top. And when that's the case, well, you gotta do a little bit more. This is a collar. Again, take a picture. This one's kind of hard to mess up because it has that indentation there. Also has a little rotor shim there underneath. And we should be able to get this up. It's probably easier just to put the piece back in, knock this up. Looks like we knocked the bearing out with that, which is wonderful. Bring that down. And we can clean the case here, which has a little bit of dirt and debris in it as well. So I think the general failure of this reel has been just a matter of it sitting around and just the greases that were in there dried, and well, they need to be cleaned up, re-greased in order to have this reel functioning optimally. Okay, that's pretty good. There's a little more there. And this is the time to do it while you have that pinion gear out, because you'll never get behind there once that pinion gear is in. Okay, case is cleaned. Let's put a little bit of oil onto that bearing. The bearing came out nice and easy. There's an open side which was facing down, and there was a closed side facing up. Leaving those pieces on my desk tends to get dangerous, but I'm going to try to be extra careful here. I'm going to take a small bladed screwdriver and scrape off the grease that's currently on that pinion gear. So this is a single ball bearing reel. It is advertised as a ball bearing reel, properly so. Again, more just old grease. If you find that the grease is on half of this, well, then you know which way it was stored. Gravity works. Okay, a little bit of grease taken off, a little bit of penetrating oil to facilitate the rest. Get that brush and pull the rest of it off, and you'll see just how nice and clean it's coming out here. And again, I put that onto my towel so I don't put it onto my table. Okay, just grab cotton swab, go in and push it through, because every now and then you've got the oil greases inside the shaft. We're going to go ahead and reinstall then. I put the pinion gear, oops, let's go put some grease on that. That would be easier to do outside. So let's do that. Get some on the shaft where that bearing is going to run. I guess we can go through the top with this. Bearing goes on. Seat the assembly in there. We'll come for that little tie down. Seat that and align those holes for the screws. I put those 2 small screws into my tray, so we'll go get those now. If the pinion gear falls through the bottom again, don't worry, it's not going to go far. These are steel screws. If you're using this reel in a saltwater environment, make sure you take extra caution to clean that reel off. These can rust, they do rust, and well, if they rust and freeze into the case, you're not going to be able to service the reel. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in general, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, maybe you want to know a little bit more about the reel history, maybe you want to know why or how this reel was used, just leave them in the comments section. I'll try to answer those for you. All right, we had a little collar that went on top of the pinion gear. Then we can put this assembly in. Find the flat spots. Bring that down. Remember that your nut came off in a traditional counterclockwise or lefty-loosey, so the return of that can be in a traditional right-handed thread turn. Make sure that you do not cross-thread this. Start it by hand and just finish that last quarter turn or so with that ratchet. If you ruin that pinion gear, well, it's going to be ruined for good. Give it a spin. What can I say? It spins beautifully and easily. Test your bail if you like. Didn't have the leverage. All right, let's go back then. Next thing in is your axle shaft. Bring the axle shaft down, put a little light coating of grease on that. Bring that down, and then once you start getting it through there, go get your crosswind block. The crosswind block is going to get grease into that slot and onto the face. Remember that the crosswind block sits this way, so go ahead and put a little bit of grease onto the shoulders that are going to ride on those 2 case extensions. Sit that in, and now what you want to do is you want to align the hole in the axle shaft with the hole in the crosswind block, just like that. Well, just turned it, as I said, just like that. Just line it up so that you can put your tie-down screw in. Go into your arch tray, get that tie-down screw. And we can tighten that up next. Oops, well, that's the advantage and disadvantage of a magnetic screwdriver. So let's try that again. Okay, we're in good condition with that. Again, if you want a little light coating once you've come through the pinion gear, that's fine. All right. When you have your assembly ready now, find the stud on your main gear. That stud has to go into the slot in that crosswind gear. So you have to kind of look like this, open it up and kind of aim for the best. It may take a time or two. But you will get it. There we go. Okay, 3 screws. And then we'll turn our attention to this, the top end of this, the spool, because we're going to check the drag washers as well. This has got a kind of a floating plate here, so we're just trying to line that up at the moment. And one more screw. Okay, and then we didn't finish the one that we started, so let's go back and start that one. If they're not going in easy, back them out and start again. And now what we want to do with this tightened down is we make sure that we have that crossline block set up properly. And we do, it's going up and down. All right, over to the spool then. The spool is held in by a C-clip. This is a little spring. So when you go to take this out, hold a finger on the top of it so that it doesn't shoot. There's 2 little slots, go find one of them. Come in from behind it and lift that spring up and out. That's your spring. We're going to have a series of drag washers in here now. The only question is, what are they? They may be felt, they may be cork, they may be leather. Or they may be none of the above. You might just have metal washers. That happens in some. A little bit of a squirt of oil in there just to clean it up. Penetrating oil again as a general degreaser. You want to get any dirt and debris out of the spools because your drag system will be compromised if you don't do that. Okay, we have that. We have a metal ripple washer. We have a pretty interesting one here. It's got a little fork on it that's going to have to be reset, and we also have this geared washer, so I'm going to clean up right now. Again, any debris or the like, old dried greases and that, they're going to become ineffective if you leave them dirty. Here's our washer. That's a hard washer. I'm not quite sure what that is, but that's a hard washer. It goes next. And then we have the top washer. And we have that clip again. When you reinstall the clip, find the groove on the one side. Keep it out of those 2 side holes. Press it down and seat it. There you go. All right, on this shaft here, you have a groove in the shaft. The top washer has a little stud that sticks out, so align that so that it can seat like that. That one was relatively painless. We'll go ahead and grab our scrubby pad with a little bit of rod and reel cleaner on it. Bring that down, and we're going to give this all a test now. Tighten it down, make sure that the drag holds. It holds nicely, back it up so that you can have movement in the spool and it doesn't compress those washers. Let's reset the handle and we'll give it a spin, literally. All right, well, we have our anti-reverses working. Very nice. Now we'll do the bail with the crank. Turns nice and easily. Turn the click mechanism off so that we can backpedal the reel. We can. And forward again. So there you go. That's how you do it. That's the Eagle Claw Model 225 by Wright and McGill, made in Japan. Don't have the manufacturer available. Somebody out there will know who it is, I'm sure. And a beautiful example of a 1970s era freshwater or crossover in shore ocean reel. Perfect for pier, boat, surf casting, and the like. I would say it probably operates between 10 and 14 pounds of line, and well, it's ready to go fishing. Scott, thank you for sending that in. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for all you do to keep us safe. Your efforts are appreciated. To everyone, enjoy your art of fishing reel repair, but make sure you take the time to go fishing. I've been doing that lately with my grandchildren, and we're having a ball. And seasons are finally open. And please stay watching. And again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. And if you have subscribed already, thank you. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And use that notification button to let you know when I'm posting the next video. Thanks all for watching. Have a great day.